Hello and welcome back, everybody. I just kind of wanted to do a quick video. I have played No Man's Sky once it was released for the PC, and I gave myself a few days of playtime with it. Due to some technical difficulties in the very beginning, I couldn't do any Let's Play videos, but it did not take me too long to decide that I think that was a good thing. I may have possibly thrown a couple up. In fact, I did do a short recording, which you see playing in the background now. But this is my opinion piece, my brain fart about No Man's Sky. And there's been a lot of controversy, and there's been a lot of negative opinion thrown at this game, some positive. You got your diehard fans who will never give it up, and you got people who have changed their minds. People go back and forth. Some people that did not think it was going to be a great big thing really kind of like it. And the opposite for those that were very fanatical about it, feel like they got completely screwed. I don't know what camp I necessarily fit in. I wasn't a huge fan. I wasn't on that hype train for years, only a few months. But I really did kind of get on it. The promises that were made were awesome, and I was looking forward to something really spectacular. I had said to a couple of friends of mine that if even 10% of the promises that were made were filled, it would still be an awesome game. Sadly enough, I don't think they even got that 10% down, in my opinion. And as this is just my opinion, you are free to disagree with it and leave your comments down below. I don't mind. But I wanted to talk about my first week with No Man's Sky, and I'll start off with how it ends. I think I'm pretty done with it. Over the course of the week, I got about a little under 60 hours into the game. I'm sure I could have done more, and people will say, oh, you didn't play enough to really get the full feel. If I played 60 hours of a game, I think I've got enough. I should have been given everything I need to make a full idea about what the game is. If anybody wants to tell me that I need to play for 80 hours or 100 hours to really understand, tough shit. Nobody should ever have to play that long to decide if they like a game or not. Now, a few aspects of the game which I considered pretty flawed really killed it for me. And some of those things were intentional, so it's not like they made a mistake and something just turned out bad. It's they decided to go a certain way, and it wasn't to my particular liking. And from what I've seen over the past few days, it's not been to a lot of people's liking. While I was playing for the first week, I really didn't watch anybody else's videos. I didn't want to watch any other playthroughs or any reviews, or I don't want to see anything that would really twist what my ideas were. So I avoided the whole thing completely for a few days. About the 5th day in, I started to watch a couple of videos and start to see some of the new controversy that had been coming about, that a lot of lies were being dug up about what Sean Murray had said the game was going to be, and it turned out to not be multiplayer, a variety of other things. And yeah, I could see how that would be a problem, and it is a problem to me. I didn't go into the game thinking of it as a multiplayer or looking forward to multiplayer. But after almost 60 hours in, I think I would have hoped there would be some then, because that might have been one of the few things that could have made it better for me. It might have made me more interested if I could run into other people. But from what everybody's saying, and the undeniable proof here, there, and everywhere, it's just not a thing. At least not right now. But some of these design elements that were flawed, the biggest one for me and a lot of people that I've seen is the inventory system. It is fucking trash. It doesn't bother me that you start off with so few spaces in the beginning. To work hard to build up the amount of spaces in your suit and your multi-tool, I get it. That was a fun aspect. I could deal with building that up. The idea that you could not upgrade anything without an empty slot, You couldn't even see the menus of what's available as upgrades. You can't do it without an empty slot. Is a major oversight. And that's something that I believe was completely intentional. They just didn't think of it. They didn't think it all the way through. Like many games, like many MMOs and such, you get to a point where the fun gets pulled back a little bit, and you realize that you do have to grind out a few levels for a skill, for a power, for a new outfit, for anything in the game itself. Every game has its point where you have to grind. No Man's Sky didn't really have that point where you have to grind. The whole game is just a grinding of getting better gear to do the same thing that you've already been doing. There's the end goal of the center of the galaxy. But other than that, a personal goal, something that should fill your time and fulfill your time before you get to the center of the galaxy, there doesn't seem to be much. Cataloging animals and planets, that's all fine and good, and that's very fun for a while. But once that dies out, all you're left with is having to get a new multi-tool to fill up the slots. And then once you've got this new tool, or let's go with the ship idea. Once you have gotten yourself a new ship, anything that's in that new ship, you're going to have to grind out the upgrades for that again, taking hours to get a whole ship taken care of. Depending on how much time you have in your day, it could take a couple of days. It becomes a huge grinding pain in the ball sacks, and I was not pleased with that. The market, which we were told was kind of based off of how different star systems would have the materials, and it was dynamic and all. I didn't see any of that. Been to enough star systems and looked through their markets that it seemed more random, really. There didn't seem to be anything that made me feel that the market was based off of any real economy in the game. It just seemed completely random, and it didn't feel true to me. There was a lack of variety in so many of the plants and rocks on the planet, except for when you want to find iron. For some reason, iron's got the best job there in this game, because there's so many different structures and types of stones and everything that you get iron from. There's such a huge variety. But almost everything else, if I'm not mistaken, almost everything else, it's the same thing. You want zinc from your little flower? It's the same fucking flower on every planet with a different name. And same thing when you want to go find your platinum, I believe, from one of the blue plants. Same thing. They all look the same everywhere. Another thing you get a little bit of variety in is things you can find carbon in. But it just doesn't seem like enough. There just wasn't enough of that. And when it comes to the variety in the creatures you find, for the first little while it was amazing, it was great. But then you start to notice the familiarity, and it doesn't take very long for that to happen. I was hoping like 10, 12, maybe 20 hours in, I would see something that I would say, oh, I remember that from the beginning. But no, it was almost right away. Second planet or third planet, it was like almost the same exact thing. Whoever the hell programmed this shit seems to have an obsession with spiders, because those little spider creatures, so far, almost 60 hours in, I've only seen these tiny little spider creatures with two types of legs. They either have tarantula legs or octopus legs, and they're all about the size of a football, and that's it. They got a little variety on top. One looks kind of like a crab. One had, crab-like pincers or lobster. But there was so little variety in there, and I kind of like those little creatures. I would have loved to see them bigger. I would love to see more variety in those spider creatures, because I've always had a thing for spiders myself. And one of the other things, I consider it that I got to quote-unquote see behind the curtain. I became disillusioned with one thing, and if anybody else has experienced the same thing, please leave a comment below, or if you can link to a screenshot, I'd like to see it. But I went to a planet. This happened to me on 2 different planets. When you have for artists and people who do this kind of work for the games, when you have a 3D map and a texture map, and you just kind of make a copy of it, flip it over, push it to the side, basically a mirror effect. So you've got, left side of the screen is what it is, and then the right side of the screen is just a mirror of that. in its opposite form. And when you step back and you look at it, it's obvious. You could see the pattern. You could see the mirrored effect. And it's the same thing even close up. You can almost see that seam right down the middle, depending on the original texture itself. Now, what happened to me was I was pulling into a planet and kind of circling around, and I noticed something odd, something that looked like a pattern. So I zoomed out a little bit. I got my ship away from the planet, took a better look, and almost right down the center from the position I was at, it was there was a straight line, and the left and the right side of this planet were just mirrors of each other. And this happened on two different planets, which gave me the impression that this procedural generation did not work on creating a whole planet, that it just created half a planet, and all they did was copy it and then paste it together into one solid sphere, which to me is kind of cheating. They said it was going to be a certain way. I feel like it happened a different way, and it was cheating. Maybe they were trying to save resources by not having to compute all of that. I'm not a world star programmer. I dabbled a few years ago, but that's about it. So I couldn't say that I imagine I would know enough about the systems here to know exactly what they're doing, what they went through, and what they had to sacrifice. But what I feel is that they kind of shortchanged us on their ideals. They wanted to create a planet. They created half a planet, just copied it. And I was kind of disillusioned, especially when I saw it a second time, and it just kind of killed it for me. So once I felt that, I kind of pulled back a little bit. I didn't play obsessively for hours and hours on end these last couple of days. Just kind of peeking back in, seeing if I could get my interest up again. And it's not really happening. I'm not really finding the interest in continuing with this game. I was following the path of Atlas, what constitutes for a storyline, I suppose. And while it is moderately interesting, that's it. It's just moderate. I don't feel like there's enough. Their idea of bounties out in space, it was kind of a joke. The whole space battles itself is kind of not really fun. But it was never meant to be a full-on space sim, I believe. They just kind of were hoping that that was going to be awesome too. It just didn't work out that way. Now, the alien races that you have to deal with, the Gek, the Viking, the other one, they were interesting, but so limited in what you can do. You just see them in their seats, see them in their buildings. They don't move around. They don't do anything. There's so little life to these aliens to me. They're just props. Props with words pasted on the screen. Words which you have to wait way too long for sometimes when you see it over and over and over again. I wish there was a way to just skip past that first 5 seconds to just give me the menu of what I'm supposed to say, because I've seen this damn menu 1,000 times already. But you have to wait. It's a design choice that I think they could update, or, like I said, give an option to zip right through it. And the idea of much more variety in the ships themselves, I really didn't see it. So a lot of different kinds of ships, but same thing like the animals. After a couple of planets, they just mostly all look the same with a different paint job. Now, a lot of people were pissed off, myself included to an extent, that there was a full price $60 tag in the US for this game, as though it were a AAA title. But what we got delivered to us was not a AAA game. It's an experience, and on some levels, it can be a fun experience if you're into the whole cataloging of animals and the exploration mode, which this game does very well. But where it excels, that's where it stops. And so many of the other aspects just kind of are lost. And now that Sean Murray has pulled back on his promise of updates that were going to be free, I'm pretty sure not only am I not going to play this game anymore, I won't be dealing with the DLC. I would wait for the DLC to come out this time, watch other people deal with it for a week or two, and then make a decision. It would have to blow my fucking mind. It would have to have a real sense of multiplayer and a lot more control and customization, a better inventory system, a realistic feeling market because I was very much into the trading aspect, but it just lost, completely lost on me. And I don't do rating scales. At least I'd say I don't do them. I'd never done them before. So if I was gonna give it a rating scale, I won't do it because it doesn't matter. My opinion's not that important. I'm just here with a brain fart. Well, I'm glad I did get that off my chest. And if anybody has a differing opinion or you want to discuss anything that I've spoken about, especially if you do have a differing opinion, because I would like to hear what other people feel on a more positive note, possibly. If you want to complain as well, you could do that too. If you want to agree with me and shitstorm all over this game, you could do that too. But glad I got that out. We'd love to hear from anybody, so leave a comment down below. If you liked the video, give me a thumbs up. If you want to see more videos as I make them, you can subscribe. I may or may not do any more No Man's Sky, but we'll see how it turns out in the future once more patches and DLC comes out. We'll see what happens. And I look forward to hearing from you.